The film begins with the Creed family moving into their new home. The family consists of the father, Dr. Louis, the mother, Rachel, along with their 2 children, Ellie and Gage, and their cat, Church. The whole family is very excited about their new home. Ellie goes to play with the swing in the backyard and tells her parents that she sees a path in the distance. Just then, the rope breaks, and Ellie falls. Louis and Rachel go to help her, and in the process, little Gage goes to play with the cat. After that, Gage sees trucks passing on the road and slowly approaches them. Fortunately, their kind neighbor Judd takes Gage in his arms and warns the family that speeding trucks often pass on this road. Rachel and Louis approach and thank him. Then the woman asks about the path across the road. Judd says it is a long story and he will tell it to them once they are settled in the house. Later that evening, Louis comes out of the house and looks curiously at the path. Then he sees his neighbor smoking a cigarette. Judd invites Louis to have a beer with him. Judd reveals that the trail leads to a pet cemetery, and this dangerous road is why the graveyard exists. The truth is that many animals die on this road because of passing cars. In fact, Judd suggests neutering the cat so that it avoids venturing far from the house. Louis thanks him for the advice, and then they enjoy their beer. The next morning, Judd keeps his promise and takes the Creed family to the mysterious path that leads them to a pet cemetery. Rachel notices that the word cemetery is misspelled and deduces that it was made by a child. Therefore, she thinks it is sad to see children upset about their deceased pets. Jed says he understands what kids go through after the death of their pets, nevertheless, they must know what death means. That evening, Ellie asks her father what will happen if her cat dies. Louis reassures her that Church will live a long time and stay with her. The next morning, Ellie learns that their cat will be neutered and argues with her father about it. Louis says this is necessary, but the cat will remain the same. This is the first day of work for Louis, and he goes to the University of Maine. When he arrives, a bloodied man is rushed to the hospital after being hit by a truck. Louis runs to help him, but the poor guy seems to die suddenly as Louis sits beside him. The guy opens his eyes and grabs the doctor. He peers into his eyes and whispers his name, saying he will come for him. Louis is confused and frightened because he cannot understand how he knows his name. That night, Louis is sleeping when suddenly the young man hit by the truck appears in the bedroom. He is still bloody from head to toe and calls Louis outside. The two start walking together along the path leading to the pet cemetery. The ghost states that this is the place where the dead speak. The young man warns him and shows him the point after which one should go no further, because this is where the dead walk. Dr. Louis thinks the fellow is angry with him because he failed to save him and asks for forgiveness. Then he says he wants to wake up and fall asleep on the ground. The next morning, when Louis opens his eyes in bed, he notices that his feet are covered with mud. He throws off the sheets without saying anything to his wife. Today is Thanksgiving, and Rachel will spend the day with her father's family, who don't like Louis, and he will remain at home alone. The man receives a phone call from his neighbor, Judd, asking him to come by. Judd points out a dead cat on the edge of his lawn, which Louis recognizes as their pet, Church. When Judd asks him what he will do, Louis replies that he will bury it, but he will not reveal the truth to the family because he does not want them to be hurt. He will simply tell Ellie that the cat ran away and never came back. Judd listens to him and says there is a better way, leading Louis to the pet cemetery. Once there, Judd tells him that they will bury the cat in another place and asks him to follow him. Louis is not very sure because the young man who died yesterday warned him not to go there. Nevertheless, he follows Judd without saying anything. After a long walk, the two arrive at a burial site. Judd explains that the natives used to bury their loved ones in this place. He hands the shovel to Louis and says he must bury the cat himself. Louis digs a hole and then places the cat inside. When they return to their homes, Judd tells them to keep what they did today a secret. That evening, he talks to his children, and Ellie asks him how the cat is doing. Louis lies and says that he has not seen him all day. The next day, Louis wanders around the house and is startled when he finds Church. Later, he feeds the cat and examines it. The cat scratches him violently and then runs away. Louis tells Judd about Church, and the neighbor describes how he learned about the burial site from an Indian who buried his dog there. After he buried it, the dog reappeared, but it was not the same animal as before. Judd says he revived the cat especially for Ellie, who is too young to suffer. When Louis asks if there are people buried in that cemetery, Judd gets agitated and replies that no one ever would do such a crazy thing. Since Church has been alive, he has been acting strangely. He is no longer the sweet cat he used to be. In fact, he is quite violent and unpredictable. When the family returns home, Louis picks them up from the airport. Ellie asks the father about the cat, telling him that she had dreamed that Church had died and that he and Judd had buried him. Louis comforts Ellie by saying that the cat is fine. As Ellie plays with Church, she realizes that it smells like a dead cat and asks her parents to do something about it. In the next scene, we see the Creed family's neighbor leaving a note on which she writes that she has cancer and wants to end it all. The next day, the Creeds, Judd, and the dead lady's loved ones went to wait for her funeral. Later that evening, Louis and his daughter talk about what happens after death, and Rachel overhears their conversation. Louis believes that there is life after death, and that makes the little girl feel good. Rachel gets emotional and talks to Louis about her dead sister, who had a serious illness. Rachel was forced to feed her sister alone when she was only 8 years old. By then, the family couldn't wait for the sick girl to die because she was in pain and looked like a monster. Eventually, she died in front of Rachel, relieving the family, including her. The woman now feels horrible for enjoying her sister's death. Louis comforts her by telling her that it is her parents' fault because they forced her to take care of her sick sister at that age. One day, the Creed family has a picnic together with Judd. Little Gage plays with a kite and starts chasing it as the wind carries it away. Meanwhile, a huge red truck speeds down a hill. The whole family starts chasing Gage as he approaches the road, but he is run over in the middle of the street. This is a tragic moment for the family. During church services, Rachel's brother blames Louis for being irresponsible and punches him. One evening, Louis and Judd drink and talk about the mysterious place where they dug up the cat. Judd reveals that someone actually dared to bury a person there. It was a young man named Timmy, who died near the end of World War II. Bill, Timmy's father, buried his son's body in the cemetery to bring him back. Timmy returned after 4 or 5 days, but he was never the same. All he did was make others suffer, and his mother started to hate him. Timmy had to be stopped. So, Judd and other men went to Bill's house and set it on fire while Timmy was still inside. Judd resents introducing Louis to that cemetery, admitting that sometimes it is better to be dead and that the dead should not be disturbed. Judd feels guilty because he thinks it led to Gage's death. Rachel's family invites her and little Ellie to stay in Chicago with them to recover morally, leaving Louis alone. Louis is devastated. He returns to the cemetery with a bag of tools and sits by Gage's grave. There he meets the young man who died in front of his eyes, who tells him not to dare bring his son back to life. In reality, the young man, as frightening as he is, does nothing but try to help the Creed family. In fact, he often appears in Ellie and Rachel's dreams in an attempt to stop Louis. Little Ellie tells her mother about these dreams, and the woman decides to call her husband to check on him, but he does not answer. Then she also calls Judd and asks where Louis is, but the neighbor does not know anything. At that moment, Louis desperately tries to get his son back. Rachel senses that something is wrong and decides to return home. Meanwhile, the young ghost continues to follow her. Louis picks up Gage and heads toward the cemetery at the top of the hill. Meanwhile, Rachel rents a car that has a defect, but she doesn't care. Unfortunately, on the way, the car breaks down, and Rachel has to find another solution. Gladly, she manages to stop a kind truck driver who agrees to give her a ride. Louis returns home exhausted after burying Gage at the top of the hill. The plan works, and Gage comes back to life and begins to climb out of his grave. Gage returns home while his father sleeps. The little boy wanders around the house and comes across his father's medicine kit. He opens it and picks up a gleaming silver scalpel. Judd wakes up on the porch of his house, noticing that something is going on at Louis' house. He rushes to investigate, and when he enters the house, he hears Gage laughing, so he starts looking for him. He enters the bedroom, and the boy's hand emerges from under the bed, cutting Judd's heel. Then Gage comes out and violently cuts Judd's lips. The man falls to the floor, but Gage reaches out to finish him off and takes a fatal bite out of his neck. Rachel arrives home, but she hears Gage calling her into Judd's house. Before entering, she finds Church outside, licking his bloody paw. She is frightened when the ghost of her sister greets her when she enters an upstairs room. Rachel closes her eyes, and when she opens them again, she sees little Gage laughing softly. He says he has brought her something and shows her his father's scalpel. Rachel, who is overjoyed, clings to her son in disbelief at what is to come. The next morning, Louis wakes up and realizes that someone has taken his scalpel. Then he sees a lot of small footprints in the room and realizes Gage is alive. Rachel's relatives call Louis to inform him that she is supposed to be home. Louis fears that something terrible has happened to his wife. So he prepares morphine and goes to Judd's house. He finds the cat, which he distracts with a raw steak and then kills it. He enters the house and finds Judd's dead body. He realizes that the only one capable of this tragedy is his son Gage and heads down the hallway, where Rachel's body emerges from the attic with a rope around her neck. At that moment, Gage jumps on Louis and cuts him several times on the face and body with the scalpel. At this point, Louis gives the boy morphine, which makes him pass out and die in the hallway. The man then douses the house with gasoline and sets it on fire. Louis flees the scene, taking Rachel's body to the burial site at the top of the hill. After burying Rachel, he returns home and waits for his wife to return. Eventually, Rachel reappears, and the two begin kissing passionately as she pounces on a kitchen knife on the table and ends the film. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.